You and your wife are eating dinner with your son. You get a call from the hospital telling you that the child you've been raising for the past 6 years is not actually yours. He was accidentally switched at birth with another child. After you recover from the shock of all this, you're then introduced to the other couple who has your biological child. You're left with a choice. Do you swap the children or continue raising the child you have? That is the question at the heart of director Hirokazu Kore-eda's 2013 film Like Father, Like Son. This premise is probably considered tired at this point, babies switched at birth, but this is the type of movie that can pull anyone in, especially parents. Admittedly, I've wanted to make a video about this movie for some time. I know it's relatively old by now, but I do consider it my favorite Kore-eda movie, and with it being Father's Day and all, this seems like a good time to drop a video about it. The movie first introduces us to the Ninomiya family, the hardworking and talented architect Yota and his kind and caring wife, Midori, raising their 6-year-old son, Keita, in a high-rise Tokyo apartment. The movie quickly establishes Yota as a loving but strict father who wants Keita to be highly successful like himself. Midori informs Yota the hospital where Keita was born needs to speak with them ASAP. Here is where they learn the bad news that Keita may not be theirs. The next day, they have Keita do a DNA test where it is confirmed that he is not their son and was accidentally switched at birth with another family's baby. I'm by no means a film expert, but even an idiot like me noticed Kore-eda's neat camera work leading up to the DNA test and afterwards. This shot of the happy family going into the test, moving into the future together, then leaving the test with them stuck at the railroad crossing. A passing locomotive cutting them off from our vision, halting further movement as they ponder what this all means. Before long, us in the audience and the Ninomiyas are introduced to Yukari and Yudai Saiki. Kore-eda's style has always been subtle, but it is just pure comedy gold, seeing the contrast between the strict and career-focused Yota and the laid-back and playful shopkeeper Yudai. Yota is clearly disgusted to even have to deal with these people, even mocking the Saiki's small appliance store that is attached to living quarters later in the film. Essentially, they're country bumpkins as far as he's concerned, and now he's being forced to spend time with these people who he views as below him. The casting here is brilliant. Yota is played by musician and actor Masaharu Fukuyama, and Yudai is played by Lily Frankie, a Kore-eda favorite. He would later star in Kore-eda's Shoplifters. You'll recognize a few actors from his other works here as well, but like all movies from Kore-eda, the child actors really shine. Eventually, the two families arrange a playdate, and it's here that the different styles of parenting become evident, to the disgust of Yota, which again, I found this whole setup to be hilarious. Yota is mortified at how carefree the Saikis are with their kids. It's also here that Yota gets to meet Yusei, his biological son. As the film goes on, the class differences are shown in multiple ways. The hotel-like apartment of the Ninomiyas compared to the small apartment the Saikis live in. Even the technology we see is used to highlight the differences. For example, Keita plays Wii, while Yusei has an old handheld game. The Saikis drive a small van, while the Ninomiyas drive a new sedan. Thought was even put into the different cameras the families use. Months pass, and after some playdates and weekend sleepovers, the two families decide to make the switch permanent. There are some real haymakers in this one, especially watching Midori's pain throughout the process of giving away Keita, along with the tension between her and Yota as she feels like he blames her for not recognizing that Keita wasn't there sooner. Throughout the movie, as in real life, everybody has an opinion, mostly unsolicited, on what Yota and Midori should do. Though there are two families, the Ninomiyas are definitely the focal point, with Yota being the character whose ideas are challenged the most. But I do appreciate that they don't simply make Yota the quote-unquote bad guy here, despite his seemingly cold nature. I feel if Hollywood or less delicate hands had a crack at this story, it would have turned into this shallow nonsense where the evil rich people are the bad parents, and the noble poor people are the good parents, some crap like that. I'm happy Kore-eda avoids that while still showing the class differences. I won't give away what eventually comes of Yota and the two families, but I recommend you take the time to watch this movie and see for yourself. It's quite the gem. The question I asked at the top of the video, it's a difficult one: to keep the son you raised as your own for 6 years or exchange him for your biological son. I've asked friends and family the same question. The answers I get are extremely interesting. I've even had couples disagree with each other when asked this question. I think it's also fair to say life is pretty messy and perhaps there aren't just two choices here. But either way, the amount of things to consider are mind-boggling. The movie presents so many different sides to this dilemma as it cuts across a lot of dimensions, like time and sex and culture and class. Take time, for instance. If you found out you had the wrong child after, I don't know, maybe a month, maybe that's just not such a big deal. Most people would probably make the switch at that point. But 6 years? That could be too much for people, as it is for Midori, as she already has so many memories with Keita, and it's extremely painful when the time comes for her to separate from him. And I'm not basing this off anything other than my own thoughts here, but I mentioned sex, and I do get the idea that mothers would have the biggest issue with giving away a child after almost any amount of time.
似てるとか似てないとか、そんなことにこだわってるのは子供とつながってるっていう実感のない男だけよ。
We have to consider also that bloodlines tend to matter more in some countries than others, and adoption isn't always seen the same depending on where you're from. So the decision isn't an easy one no matter which way you cut it. Ultimately, I think the best and least entertaining way to answer this question is we don't know what we would do until we're in the situation. There are some things in life where I can say I would do X, Y, and Z, but I can't really be sure until I'm actually faced with the dilemma. It's in those moments where you find out who you really are and what matters most to you. The idea of what constitutes a family is a common theme in a lot of Kore-eda movies. I think we'd see the culmination of that in 2018's Shoplifters, but here I think that takes somewhat of a backseat to the more pertinent question of how much does blood matter when it comes to parenting. Again, I won't spoil what happens, but I would love to know your thoughts on what you would do if you were in the main character's shoes. I'd also love to read your thoughts on the movie itself if you've seen it. And if you haven't seen it, as I said, I highly recommend it. And yeah, I know, I normally don't make videos like this. Usually all my videos are about Godzilla or something like that. But I would like to start doing more of these shorter videos that are not related to giant monsters. And maybe some will be related to giant monsters. There's other movies I want to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. And I hope you all have a wonderful Father's Day. God bless.